Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for joining me. Purpose for today's video is to discuss my hand saw till, components that make up the till, also a quick look at the tools that I have hanging up there. So to begin with, we have a variety of crosscut rip saws, tenons, carcass saws hanging vertically, which sit on a brass rod running between these two components. And then I've just made up a little slither with cuts in them to house the blades. Also have a little cheap, what we'd call the Japanese pull saw. I basically just use that to flush cut off dowels that I've worked on. Also have some saw set tools, fret saws, coping saw, hacksaw, a couple of little keyhole saws, my gentleman saws. I also have this wonderful little thing, my Diston. I believe this tool is used to basically set the plane of all your teeth. So you set up a file, run along the teeth. That's what I'm led to believe. I still have not used that nice little tool, but that is what I believe it is used for. People that are more educated than I might be able to shed some more light on its purpose. But yes, I believe that's what it is for, to flatten the teeth on the rip and crosscut saws. Well, I guess you could use it for any saw. It's a nice little novelty piece. What else do we have here? Just a manual saw set tool and beautiful little razor blade holder, Red Devil jackknife. Got the patent number 62. Anyway, once again, it's just a lovely little tool that, because it has some vintage and some age, deserves a place up there. So, just going to take these. This old crosscut saw, I believe that's a crosscut. How's it been filed? Rip saw. That old saw came from my father-in-law, which was his father's. Lovely. Various stages of needing refurbishment. I like the sort of the aggressive nature of this, and the handle is quite nice. So that needs to be refurbished at some point. Yeah, similar to that. I believe that was the style handle that was on it. This is probably my newest acquisition for my saws. Beautiful little tenon saw. I get confused with the naming of all these saws, whether it's a tenon, crosscut, carcass. As I've professed in previous videos, I am not I'm not an expert in these tools. I'm teaching myself, I'm trying to learn. It still does confuse me, the specific names for the saws. I've been intrigued by this saw set for quite a while. I don't know why it has this sort of brass collar. I believe it has something to do with being able to set the saw. If I demonstrate. So here is my saw. You pop the blade in, and what you want to do is then twist it so that it then bends the tooth. That may have something to do with offsetting it as per the hole to then get a different sort of degree of angle. My beautiful fret saw, this is probably one of my most used saws. I love that saw. It is absolutely beautiful. The benefit, I do know the big difference between your fret saw and your coping saw is the depth here to allow you to get right on in, and you're able to get, for wider boards when you're cutting, let's say dovetails for example, the fret saw allows you to have a wider board so that you can turn that saw to get into those cuts. Really do like my hacksaw also. What's the brand on that one? Signal. made in Sheffield. It just is really beautiful. And my gentleman saws. That is probably my most used gentleman saw, the largest of the three. So there you go. It's nice and empty now. I'll bring you over and show you the process of assembly and manufacturing. I am fortunate to have a relationship with a gentleman that has a lot of, he works in a manufacturing business, deals with a lot of metals, and has a lot of offcuts of brass. So both Bear and I are fortunate enough to have been able to snavel a few offcuts off him and utilise for our woodworking projects. Beautiful brass rod here to hold the larger saws. This is quite a common way to store and to display hand saws, and it works. You do find a lot of people have these sleeves that the saw sits in, and then you can pull the sleeve out. A lot more work involved in those, and something I didn't tackle for that project. I needed my tools up on the wall, get them out of boxes and get them where I can use them. Brass pin is simply just drilled and friction held in there. Fixings from the back, I have rebaited in all of these shelf components. For this in particular though, I have cheated and popped a few screws in through the back just to ensure that it doesn't go anywhere. Western Red cedar for this component, couple of cypress, what would I call that? The shelves to balance the blades. That is not the correct timber to be using for that process because I have already chipped one just where a tooth has just caught it. Cypress is just too brittle. Beautiful timber, but it is a brittle Blahidian timber. I think that's a section of cypress up there. Once again, all these are housed in, glued. Western Red. That's a bit of Western Red there because, as you're all aware, woodworking is a dusty process, which I guess now would be the time to mention I don't have any dust extraction in my workshop. It's an expense that I just can't afford, and to be honest, I actually don't mind the old vacuum, clean up things. I think you just need to be aware if you're doing that. Respiratory protection, dust masks, etc. You really should be wearing that, but also be aware of the practical nature that if you don't have dust extraction, you're going to get dust over everything in the entire workshop. So just be aware of that. I don't particularly like the backing boards that I've used for a lot of these. It's just the ply that I've had. This one is an old piece of ply, so I plugged all the old holes I had in it. I have hit all of these tills on display, except a couple over yonder that are just a makeshift one, with Danish oil as the finishing. That's where the slightly yellow colour has come from on the ply. And the surround is just mited Western Red, glued frame. I then rebaited out behind the frame to pop the ply into, so the back surface is flush, and all of my tills are on French cleats, so easy to remove. There's my French cleats, just an old bit of decking that I've ripped down, and there she sits. I have tried to keep similar dimensions so that I am able to chop and change when the mood takes and alter, or when I'm lucky enough that extra tools pop up. So I believe the measurement I have, I've gone a weird offset. I think they're in increments of 450. Yeah, so we've got 900 wide for that one. A couple of them are 450. So my widths I've stuck with 450 as single units, and then multiply that out so that I can put two 450s in a 900 spot and it all lines up. I went 800 for the heights, or the 400, I don't know why I did that, to be honest. It's a weird number. I think it may have had something to do with the size ply sheets that I had. It meant that I could then get more bang for buck. It is a bit of a bizarre choice, I know, and it is what it is. It's worked quite well, but I don't really know why. When planning out tills, I really think it's super important to plan these things out, to put thought in, because little things like ensuring tools are sitting the correct way, not only for aesthetics, but also so that they can hang or sit flush. Because of the beautiful decorative knobs on these, not only did I want to see them, but to have it the other way, it wouldn't have hung nice. Yeah, when you're doing your own tills, the planning process is extremely important. The little aesthetic points I really like. Putting different angles, breaking up the monotony of the project, if I could say that. All my little trinkets back on. I believe he hung that way. So, thank you for watching, everyone. Just another example of one of my tills. I thought I'd continue down that journey just to explain the way that I've displayed these. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Any questions or comments, throw them down in the comment section there. And thank you for watching, everyone. See you next time.